Hey there, and welcome to the She Calls Her Shots podcast. Every week, we chat through different business building topics that'll help you gain clarity around your goals, find inspiration in your journey, and also help you create a life and a business that you love. My name is Krista, and I'm a wedding and brand photographer and your go-to no-fluff business coach. In these episodes, we talk through both the tactical strategies, habits, and the mindset work that'll help you take those really big leaps. And we always focus on the real talk and the behind the scenes of what it takes to create a sustainable and a thriving business. Because let's be honest, the work isn't always glamorous, but it's always worth it. So girlfriend, let's make some moves and start calling our own shots. Hello friend, and welcome to this episode of the She Calls Her Shots podcast. Today we are diving into Pinterest with Heather Farris. And I'm really excited about this episode. I actually am a part of Heather's Pinterest Pin Profit Academy, her membership. And the thing that I love the most about Heather is that she makes Pinterest so approachable. That's exactly why I titled the episode the way that I did today. Because for me, I have kind of struggled with how to implement Pinterest into my current workflow and strategy. All the tips that I heard for a really long time were very unsustainable for me, right? Like how many times you needed to share and post. And like, I never was able to create a system that actually worked and that I could do in the long run until I started working with Heather. So all of that said, she is giving us so many little nuggets of information. If Pinterest is something that you want to grow in 2023, if this is something that you have been wanting to do, but you felt overwhelmed by where to start, I'm really excited for you to dive into this episode today. So Heather is a Pinterest marketing agency owner, and she's a Pinterest educator. She's been pinning on Pinterest since 2010, when you could actually reach the bottom of the feed, when it told you that you've seen everything that you need to see way back in the day. And in her agency, she helps creative content creators to increase their brand awareness, their traffic, and their sales using Pinterest. And she helps do this with her members and her clients by focusing on creating sustainable marketing strategies that don't take you away from the things that you love to do. And in her spare time, Heather enjoys hiking, biking, playing with her kids around their backyard and in their swimming pool. She's a mom to 2 little girls, and her husband is in the Air Force. And because of this, she understands the need to be present for work and knows when to shut down and how to turn herself off and be present with family. And she really takes that value and she implements it into her systems and really teaches you how to do the same thing. So all of that said, I'm thrilled for you to listen into this conversation with Heather, and let's go ahead and dive right in. Hello, Heather. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you.
I'm so excited to chat today and chat all things Pinterest and chat things strategy and really get into the nitty gritty of how to break something down into super manageable, tangible steps. That's my whole goal of this podcast all the time. So I'm excited that that's a strong suit of yours too.
Happy to share.
Awesome. Well, yeah, first let's just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what got you to where you are today, a little bit more about you and what you do.
Oh, thanks so much. So you guys obviously know I'm Heather. Hi. Hello. Thanks for having me. I live in Arizona currently. I'm originally from the Midwest. So just a little bit about me. I lived in Arizona or Arkansas for the first 12 years of my life. That's where I was born. And then I moved to Missouri and I lived there for 18 years before my husband and I sold 95% of all of our belongings and packed our kids into an RV and traveled the country for a year. And that's where we landed in Arizona. We got stuck in Tucson with COVID and we just haven't left. So we've settled and we'll be here for a while. 2 kids, and they're both copies and pastes of my husband and I. And it's so funny. They're so different, but so much like us. And no pets. We love to do outdoorsy things. But yeah, that's personal life, business life. I started my career in banking and finance, and I did personal lending for a while. I've done car loans. So I know a lot about the financial industry and economics and stuff, but I really hated it. And I actually did bookkeeping for a while too. My whole education it's boring. It's accounting.
I
I'm
tried
an
to go to school for
accountant.
accounting and then I like changed majors after I like got through the basic classes. I was like, I can't do this.
It was horrible. So I decided, I'm not going to do this anymore. And that's what led me to Pinterest. I'd used Pinterest every day for 6 years, leading up to the day that I decided to go there and look for side hustles. And this was before we called them side hustles. So I actually searched work from home jobs, no phone, and because I had done that too. And it led me to blogging. So I started blogging. And since I had such an understanding of Pinterest and how it worked as a mom, for finances, for budgeting, for, cooking, for kids' activities, baby showers, you name it. I used it for everything. It was my Google for 6 years. It was just a natural fit for me when I started my blog, and I quickly grew my blog, but it wasn't making an income, and I hated my job, and my boss was abusive. So I just quit. And that's kind of, almost 6 years later in August, here I am by
Wow.
accident.
Yeah. And so are you, tell us more about like what you're doing currently. Are you like you're doing managing Pinterest for other people or how are you
Yeah.
using that?
Yeah, so I have a full service Pinterest agency. I started servicing clients as a freelancer in January of 2017. So it'll be 6 years like blogging and online business in August, and then it'll be 6 years doing what I'm doing now in January. Um, so yeah, I have a full service Pinterest agency. We do ads for clients, we do organic for clients, we do a lot of consulting too. So we do teach business like more successful businesses that are much further along in their
Hmm.
journey. We teach their teams, their social media teams, how to do Pinterest. That way they can keep it in house. So we kind of have our fingers in all kinds of stuff. And then right alongside that, I have an, a group, like a membership group, where I teach people how to DIY their own Pinterest accounts. So I have my fingers in a lot of things.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and before we started recording today, I was kind of talking through with you. I think a lot of the times with Pinterest, I think about it the same as SEO because I think they're actually quite similar. It's like you blog for SEO on Google and then you blog to share pins on Pinterest because it's a search engine that people are using. So in my mind, like it kind of goes hand in hand. But I think there are always a lot of mental blocks that we have around it because it's kind of a long term game. It's like you know that by committing and starting to this now, like this will return over and over and over again, but you may not necessarily see like overnight this uptick in people going to your blog. So I'd love to chat about that, like some of just the mental like mindset strategies that you sometimes help work people through of like really just getting comfortable with committing to it for the long run.
So I've just recently started talking about the same exact thing from a different way that people can understand better. And what I'm calling it, and I know that people will have taken this idea from me if I hear this anywhere in the world, which it's okay. You can borrow my idea. I call it parking your content. So people don't like a lot, especially Americans, like we like to have things right now, right? We can go through
Hmm.
the McDonald's drive-through and have a whole meal in under 5 minutes. And we can drive away and be happy with our French fries and our Coke, right? Super happy. Instant gratification. It's not like that with marketing of any kind. It doesn't matter the
Hmm.
platform. You may have an opportunity to go viral and then feed off that for a little while, but eventually that's going to peter out. So when it comes to Pinterest and SEO marketing in general, it's really hard to get caught up in, this just isn't working for my business, or I really wish this would go faster. And while you can get down on yourself and hope that it would go faster, in reality, what you're doing over time is you're building authority. So your domain and your pins on Pinterest are building authority. On Google, your blog posts and your domain are building authority. So the more people that actually engage with your content over time, the higher your authority is going to grow over time. So as you're kind of developing a stronger muscle around wanting to quit Pinterest if it's not working for you, just remember the more content you have on the platform, the same with the more content you have on your website, the more chances people are to find you and for that authority to grow. So it does get challenging at times when I'm talking to clients and they're like, I want to quit. And then we'll look at their Google Analytics and they will see that Pinterest is their number one traffic driver. And they're like, okay, well, I can't do this. So guess I'm going to stay.
Yeah, well, and I know for me too, there's like two things that I found for myself, and I know my listeners, because we're all kind of multi-passionate, like we go-getters go all in. One of the kind of downsides of having that kind of a personality trait is like I will make the most intense strategy for myself that like in my head I'm like, oh, this is going to be guaranteed great results, like wait until it picks up. But then what ends up happening is that I'm doing so much that it's like I can manage it for maybe a couple weeks and then I'm like burnt out, done. And because I'm not seeing results, I'm like, oh well, I'll just move on to something else. So I think that's like a really common thing is we think that we have to make it really strategized and like really over the top when it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
The foundations of any great content strategy, whether you're doing it for your blog or Pinterest, and I'll, like through the interview, I'll probably refer to like, you know, your blog and Pinterest simultaneously because they're, while Google and Pinterest are not exactly the same, the user intent tends to be different. So user intent on Google is do, know, or go. We don't have that go component of like people will type in like food trucks near me. That doesn't happen on Pinterest, but the do and the know happen on Pinterest. So when you really think about a really great foundational content strategy, no matter whether you're blogging or you're pinning, it really comes back to having quality content. People want value and they want to learn from you. So anyways, I forgot the original thought of where I was going with that. I have ADHD and squirrel brain, so
No, you're
it'll
good.
come back. But yeah,
Yeah.
you just have to have really good quality content and consistency.
Yeah. And I noticed, I think one of the other mental blocks that I found, like when I'm coaching other business owners, is that a lot of the times what we think is holding us back is not having time. Because I hear this all the time, like, oh, I don't have time to do Pinterest. I don't have time. I don't have time for XYZ. But especially with content, I feel like what the actual driving factor is they don't think that they have enough to share that's like authoritative enough. But because they don't necessarily want to like think about that, they like just immediately go to like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. But when we dig into it, it's like, no, you have time. It's just, it takes effort to sit down and think about, okay, what am I going to share that I feel like is going to really be of value? And that's when I think a lot of fear and like this imposter syndrome kicks in of like, oh, I don't have anything to share. Like, what is it that I can share that's going to, you know, really be helpful for someone?
Oh, I just had a conversation with someone in my membership group on our Q&A call this morning, and she's like, I haven't created any pins lately because I'm in a rental house and our house is getting built and I just don't have time to take quality photos. I'm like, people on Pinterest don't care about quality photos. Grab your phone and literally record yourself talking and create idea pins. At least in that instance, you're still doing something for the platform. You're still publishing content and sharing your value. But you're also bringing in new audiences that haven't heard of you through those idea pins. So sometimes it's just removing, like you said, that component of, well, I don't have anything of value to share. You always have something of value to share. What does your audience ask you the most? Share that.
Yeah. And I know I find too, for a lot of people who are starting off, or for, especially I find this for like photographers that I speak to, it's like a lot of the time we are the ones getting in our own way of like sharing content because we haven't really sat down to think and like own who we are, what we bring, like our experience, our knowledge. Like when we sit down and we get comfortable realizing, like, you know what, even if I don't have a lot of clients, I know this list of things. Like I know how to do these things really well. And like I know how to provide this experience. And it's like, great. There you go. Like there's your first content that you have to share. It's like, but we end up making it so overcomplicated because I think sometimes we see these people who are just like, we think are like wizards at content creation. Like, oh, it comes so easily. But the reason it comes so easily for them is because they started with those first few things that they knew how to do and they just kept doing it until it became more doable.
It's a muscle. You're actually building a muscle, especially with Pinterest. And I'm sure we'll get into the workflow kind of questions that, you know, in a little bit. But part of that workflow that I teach people, and one of the ways that I teach people differently, there's so many different people you can learn Pinterest from. Like, I definitely own that I'm not the only one in the space. But one of the foundational principles I always teach is starting with your customer or your audience and figuring out what that journey is for them to get them from never knowing you to buying from you, and then using that to actually guide the Pinterest strategy and the workflow. Once you have all of that journey kind of mapped out, and then you understand why they even need you in the first place, it's a lot easier to map your content. It's a lot easier to map your workflows. Because then when you do sit down and you're doing your Instagram posts for the month and you're doing your Pinterest pins for the month, you can plug and play because your content comes easier.
Yeah. Hey there, it's Krista here. If you're a creative business owner that wants to feel more confident in your skills and your ability to create a thriving business, I'd love to invite you to join me for my newest 30-day challenge called the Confident Creative. It's completely free, and inside the Confident Creative Challenge, I'm helping you implement the strategies that will not only help you feel more confident as a creative business owner, but I'm also giving you access into the exact tools that I use to bring in more joy and money to my growing business every day. At the end of the day, our confidence really does affect how much our business can grow. We have to deeply believe in ourselves and feel gratitude for where we are right now if we want to take things to the next level. But oftentimes our doubts, our fears, our worries, our insecurities, all of these things can sometimes take over in our mindset and really keep us playing small. So if you're ready to join me inside the challenge, head on over to heykristamarie.com/challenge. And as soon as you join, you'll get immediate access to the challenge information, the guided PDF workbook, the daily journal prompts, and a beautiful daily checklist to help you track your results. There's honestly no better time to join me than right now. So if you're ready to gain massive clarity, unleash your inner confidence to create that life and business that you're proud of, I can't wait to see you inside the challenge. So again, that's heykristamarie.com/challenge, and I can't wait to see you inside. And speaking of that, let's just go ahead and dive into kind of workflows for someone who has either been, I think for a lot of us, we have used Pinterest for millions of things, but maybe not necessarily used it for our business in a more strategic way. I'd love to hear kind of some workflow, like how to start approaching it in a way that feels like easy.
Yeah. So there's a couple different workflows I like to work through and set up. So the first being one that you will do over and over time, but that's like your keyword research. So building that very first kind of body of keyword research and having that in a place where you can quickly look at it and you're not always having to go to the platform. So most all of my workflows stem from setting yourself up. That way you're not having to go back and do the same thing every time. You're not having to go look for stock images, and you're not having to go find a new template, and then you're having to look for keywords, and then you're having to, we have to bring that in. We have to reel that in. Otherwise you will spend 5 hours making 6 pens, and it's just too much time. So what I like to do is start with that initial keyword research plan. What are your main keywords that you want to target for this platform, and have them in a list? What I like to do, and I was telling you before we started, is I have something called a Pinterest system. And it's literally, we track all your content, we track all your landing pages, we track your affiliate links, we track your keywords. Everything is in this one spreadsheet. So we build out your kind of Pinterest system there. So we'll start with your keywords. And once we have keywords in place, then we'll start with your content. What photo sessions have you done lately? Or all of them? And then also, what blog content as a photographer do you have in your library? So once we know what we have in our library, it's easier to create pins. And then, so we have kind of this developing workflow over time. I like to also create a workflow for Canva. So having all my images uploaded into Canva right away. So each family for your photography businesses, upload all of the photos that are for public use into a folder in Canva for that family and label it. So you'll have a big folder, photo sessions, family A, family B, family C. Have all your photos in one place, and then get your templates in there. Make sure all your templates are solidified and you like it. Make sure all your branding is in there. Canva is so cheap. It's like $10 a year. Pay for that sucker for the year. You don't have to worry about it again. And then create all your folders, add all your branding, all your logos, all your fonts. They're all in there. And then you have your Canva system set up. And then from there, just like a weekly Pinterest system is deciding, okay, what time of year is it? If it's fall, we probably need to promote previous fall photo shoots and any fall photo shoot tips. How to pair plaid with stripes, plaid with solids. Like, what kind of free content are you creating for your customers, your photo session clients? And then pairing that with any photo sessions, and then laying out, okay, it's fall. We have these 6 blog posts we want to promote, and we have these 6 families. And then we have upcoming shoots. Maybe you also have a freebie that you promote of like, I think I downloaded a freebie once that was like how to style your family clothing. Basically, I think that's what it was. So maybe you have a freebie you want to throw in there too. So what I like to tell people is 1 pin per day, 1 idea pin per week is a minimum viable Pinterest strategy. So out of those 1 pin, the 1 per day, we'll plug in a couple blog posts, we'll plug in a couple family sessions, we'll plug in something free or paid. So freebie or some paid offer that you want to promote. And then that's when all the other pieces of the workflow start to come in. So we have our keyword research stored, and now we have our URLs we know we want to promote, and we have our templates already in Canva ready to go. So now it's easier to drag and drop all of that in. And then part of that workflow is actually pre-writing your pin titles and descriptions. So once you know you have family A, B, and C, what about those families sticks out? Where did you shoot this at? What kind of shoot was it? Was it for birthdays, family sessions? Was it for fall? Was it a wedding? So those will kind of play into your keywords and writing your titles and descriptions. And then once you have your titles and descriptions written, you have your URLs, you have your images, and we move on to the final piece of the workflow, which is just scheduling them. And you don't need to pay for a scheduler. You can just use Pinterest, especially if you're very new in your business and you have other expenditures like cameras or lenses that you need to pay for.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's like, again, the importance of consistency, like 1 pin a week, 1 idea, or 1 pin per day, 1 idea pin per week, like is pretty doable, especially if you can build out a system where maybe you sit down and you pin out, like you figure out what you're going to post for 2 weeks. Maybe you can't schedule it out that far. Maybe you can schedule it out that far, but like you can sit down and kind of batch that as much as possible. So that way you're not having to do it every single week if that feels like a heavier lift.
Yeah. Yeah. So part of what we do for clients actually is the month ahead of what we're actually planning on. So right now I'm doing all of June. I've actually already done all of June's content. So we're recording this in May of 2022, right? I've already prepped and finalized all of the URLs that we will promote in the month of June for clients, and sent that to them for final approval. And then once I got final approval back, which is normally by the middle of the month, I'll start creating all of the image files. So we'll rough outline all the images without the photos. So all the text overlays on the templates will be done. And then that leaves us like week of, all we have to do is drag images in and download them. So all the titles, text overlays, all the descriptions are already written. And that alleviates a lot of that last minute rush of needing to do it right now. So if anyone's listening and you're wanting to do Pinterest, don't feel like you need to publish something this week. Instead of feeling like you need to get something in your queue for tomorrow, get something in your queue for a week from tomorrow, and then start a weekly routine of like, okay, this week I'm working on next week. Next week I'm working on the following week. That way you're always kind of ahead of it.
Yeah, that's exactly the approach that I'm having with like when I'm thinking about blogging, because it's so much easier. I feel like it's so stressful when we put these systems on ourselves, and I am the queen of putting systems. Like I overcomplicate so many things, which is why it's one of my favorite things to talk about, because I think it's so important to like push past that. But it's so important to remember that like you don't have to, oh, it's, June 1st. Okay, I need to get all of my things ready for June. It's like, why put that pressure on yourself? Like if you're just starting something off, give yourself a little bit of grace and like prep for what's to come. So that way you can set up a system that's like easy and not quite as pressured, because there's nothing takes the fun out of like marketing, like putting really quick deadlines on something where you feel like you just have to like push something out because you told yourself that you would. So I love that, like planning for at least like a week in advance, or like starting to plan your content for the month before.
Yeah. And I really think what leads a lot of people to Pinterest burnout is really low quality content. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, historically speaking, maybe not those listening to the podcast, I will raise my hand because I'm guilty of this, but I will literally, like, in a moment of panic, realize, oh, I don't have any pins in the queue. I haven't done this for clients because for clients, we're working so far in advance. But for myself, like, I always back burner my own marketing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like the last thing you want to do as a business owner, because how are you going to continue to get clients? So, what I found myself doing in the past is actually just copying and pasting the blog post title or the offer title to the text overlay and then the pin title. And it just ends up being really low quality, poor content for Pinterest. And no
Mm-hmm.
one interacts with it. And it just kind of leads to Pinterest burnout of like, well, why am I doing this? Well, if you didn't create poor content to start with, Heather, maybe people would have clicked on it.
Yeah, I feel like reactive marketing is, I think, a very common thing. Like, and I know for me, even something as simple as, I actually just had a conversation, an interview with another podcaster like a week ago, and she was telling me about this Google sheet that she had that like is just like I mean, it's a very, very simple workflow of like all of her previous podcast episodes and a place to like have drop downs of like, is it recorded? Is it scheduled? Do I have graphics? I mean, it was like so simple. It's everything all in one Google Sheet. But for some strange reason, that was like mind blowing to me because I didn't have like one place where I kind of housed all of my information. So I found myself all the time kind of like grabbing it from this folder, like checking this and like not having one place where I could go to. And sometimes it just takes something so simple like that of like maybe it's a Google sheet of like, okay, here's what I'm going to pin this week. Like, are the graphics created? Is the text created? Like, and then having one doc that you can go to. And it's like, I think so. We spend so much time, a lot of the times we'll waste a lot of time trying to just figure out what it is that we need to do. Like we don't
Yeah.
really have these really simple things set up to just allow it to be easy and to just come and be like, okay, what do I need to work on right now? Oh, I need to create graphics for these. Okay, cool. I'll go do that now. And that's like a 5-second decision as opposed to searching around in all of our things of like, what should I work on now? Like, what do I need to do?
So that's actually my Pinterest system I was explaining is very similar to the podcast system that this other podcaster has. It's literally, it started as what I called a content hub. So it was like all my blog posts, all my YouTube links. I have a YouTube channel too. And then beyond that, it's like, when is the promotion timeline for this? So for Pinterest specifically, a lot of content is seasonal. So if
Mm-hmm.
if it's like Halloween, we actually need to back it up 30 to 90 days and start promoting like in July, um, up to Halloween. Same for like Christmas. A lot of people will start publishing Christmas content in August. So like this promotion timeline in this Pinterest system that I created, is the same deal. Like, okay, if I can filter this out by the month of June, and I know in the month of June how I categorized it, I need to make pins for these in June. So
Mm-hmm.
you know what to create pins for. And then again, you can store like your pin title and description and all of that stuff in there. So you can see what you created before. And then you're not recreating the wheel all the time.
Yeah. And I think something as simple as that, I actually did an exercise like that with my coach a few months back where it was like, again, me trying to overcomplicate things, thinking I needed an entire content calendar with all this stuff. And it was like literally a Google Doc. And it was like, what do you have coming up? And literally just list out the months of the year and then just like write like, oh, I want to promote this or like this is coming up. And I think something as simple as like looking at it from that point of view of like being able to see it in one place and then being able
Mm-hmm.
to plug that into like a spreadsheet and being like, okay, if I know I need to create pins that are around this, like all of a sudden content creation feels so much easier because we're
It
not sitting
does.
here trying to grasp at the straws of like, what should I be creating? Because I think again, we tend to go back to this reactive form instead of putting in this little bit of proactive effort of just like figuring out what would make sense for us during that like time of year or month or whatever it might be.
So, one hot tip for your listeners for Pinterest specifically is think about Pinterest the same way that when you walk into Target and you see that it's August and it's hot as crap outside and there's Halloween candy on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
If brick and mortar stores are already selling a holiday that's coming up and it's 2 months out, you are already late. You need to go home and start thinking about your Easter content or your Halloween content, because brick and mortar stores already know that people are planners and they're planning in advance, and they likely will have budgets that they need to follow. So I start buying Christmas gifts in the middle of the summer because I know come Christmas, I'm not going to be able to drop all of that cash because I still have a mortgage, I still have utilities, all these things still come due even though it's Christmas. So I want your listeners to think about 30 to 90 days in advance of something happening. So if we're talking fall photo shoots, then we're doing fall photo shoot content in the summer. Yes, it's hot. You have outfits in your house. You have previous shoots you've already taken. Let's start promoting those early. And then you don't have to worry about, come the time, because people on Pinterest are looking for stuff early. So in the summer, they will be looking for fall photo shoot ideas. If they know they want to do a fall photo shoot because maybe they like fall colors, maybe they have an anniversary in the fall. So they're already planning for those things in advance. There's actually this really cool tool for Pinterest. Google has it too. It's called Trends. So go to trends.pinterest.com, or in your analytics tab on your Pinterest account. If you drop your analytics tab down, there will be 3 windows. And the bottom are 3 choices. The bottom one is trends. So if you go there and you type in whatever you're looking to promote. Now, this tool doesn't have everything on Pinterest in it. So if something doesn't come up, try searching another way. But you'll see a bar on the screen for 12 months of the year. So current day to yesterday last year, basically, is where it will end. And you'll see the line up and down. When there's a down point and you're before that holiday, so let's say it's Halloween, for example, it's an easy one to talk about. And it's in August and it's really far down, but it shoots up from August to October. The down point is when you want to start promoting your content.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And you're saying that too. And I'm thinking even for like coaches or online businesses, like there are still a lot of seasonal things that I think we experience as business owners. When you do simple client exercises of like, what is my client looking for? There's usually certain things during certain times of year. So like coaches or like online business owners, a lot of the times in like the end of the year, people are like, your clients are probably starting to think about January 1st, goal setting, like putting in new systems, like there's certain things like that, or like tax time, like everyone's kind of stressed about money. So it's like, oh, maybe I'm going to talk about a discount or a promotion, or like there's so many seasons I think that we can think about even outside of like the typical seasons. I think it just like takes sitting down and really thinking like, okay, what do I feel like my clients are like feeling right now, or like or what will they be looking for like in these next, I love that, like 30, 60, 90 days.
Yeah. Pinterest used to put out this planner called it was the Pinterest Predicts. It used to be called Pinsights, and it's kind of morphed into Pinterest Predicts, which is more or less like what's going to be popular this year, but not when. So the Pinterest Insights planner, the pin planner they used to put out, used to have like months of the year, and then down the side of the graph, it would have the topics of the year, and then during those months, they would be marked off when it was popular and happening.
Oh, wow.
I really wish they would publish that again, but they've kind of morphed into creating like a magazine of sorts of like all the predictions or trends that are going to be popular for the year. But the whole point of me saying this is like, that's kind of what that was for, was to tell you when things were going to be popular. And then you could see like all of these different topics and not just what was in your industry. So the new Pinterest Predicts is kind of like, yeah, it's pretty, especially for 2022. It's pretty, but it's not super insightful for a lot of business owners as to what maybe fits into their industry. Whereas like graduation, tax season, the different holidays, as business owners, we can fit into those. So we know as business owners, just in general, especially business coaches, when back to school season starts, our businesses are going to take a leap. Because more parents are available and not tied down with their kids. Like today's my kid's last day of school. I know for the next 2 months, there's not going to be a lot of business growth. I'm literally going to be maintaining things. So now though is the time when people should be talking about growing your business in the summer or in the fall, because we are ahead. So tax season is the same. productivity, time management, goal setting.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much that Pinterest Trends tool is that calendar now, but you have to know what to search for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think kind of to go along with what we were talking about earlier is like just even taking like, a couple hours one day to like start to write down, okay, what are certain times of the year that I think my clients might be like feeling or experiencing or like looking for? And then, what do I have that I've done in the past or that I know that's coming up that I know like I might be able to serve them with? And then like, where's one sheet where I can take all of this knowledge and like easily like just write out all of the things that I'm going to be doing so that there's no guesswork, there's no guessing game. It's like if we took a couple hours to do that, I can see how like one pin per day and like one idea pin per week, like that'd be such an easy thing to do. And I feel like Pinterest, because like with reels, sometimes it's hard to batch create that too far in advance because different things change and trend. But I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, if you kind of know the seasons of what people are looking for, you can probably batch create that way ahead of time and then just like schedule it to go out.
Yeah, and that's what we do for our clients. So we usually work week to week on the accounts just so we have a little tighter control
Mm-hmm.
on what's going on. But we know a month in advance what we're going to be posting for that month. And in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
cases, we actually have all the images and everything already completed. However, they're just not scheduled to go out until the week of. Selfishly, also, just because I've been burned in the past by clients, I don't want to work and not get paid. So I keep things kind of closer to the
Sure.
chest.
Yeah.
So,
As a Pinterest like manager or someone who does it for other people, there's kind of a line that you want to go. But I
yeah,
feel like as a business owner, if it's like if you know that you're going to have a busy few months and you know that you could knock out like a bunch of
yeah.
pin creations, like it's not really going to go stale in the same way that like maybe things on Instagram or Reels or things might.
And then one thing I will say that is super beneficial for Pinterest is the idea pins are more on time. So they're more like creating a reel on Instagram where you can create that right on time and you have that opportunity to get seen, right? Because it's relevant right now.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with idea pins. So if you find yourself, you can't schedule idea pins yet, it's just not an option. But if you find yourself like, oh, I want to create idea pins, but like I keep running out of time, or I don't know what to create, or like I want to create them, but I don't have time to post them, you can save them in your drafts on your mobile phone. And you can't access them, unfortunately, from desktop to mobile. You can only access them on the mobile device that you uploaded them on.
Mm.
So create them and upload them to drafts, and then set yourself a calendar reminder for whatever day of the week. Like I need to do that this afternoon, right after this. Probably I'll go schedule one for a client, or I'll go publish one for a client. But yeah, then it's just like a task in your Google Calendar.
And
It's
for
there.
idea pins, do you still find like Canva is useful for that, like for creating it, or is it? I've
I
never actually created one myself, so I'm not
I
sure.
go about this a couple of different ways. So it depends on the client and what kind of content they have. Most
Mm-hmm.
all of our clients create Instagram Reels or TikToks, but I have taught them to create for Pinterest users on those platforms. So,
Mm.
what I mean by that is we use more general calls to action. So, like this if you want to see more, follow us if you want to see more, go to the link in my profile to follow along, comment X, Y, and Z. So, those are more general calls to action that will work across platforms. So, if they create because they like Instagram, I can take the reel and make an idea pin out of it and add on a little bit more. So, one of the things that I like to do for clients is if a client makes a reel and they also have a corresponding carousel post, I can take that carousel in Canva and do the magic resize to an idea pin size. And then I can take the reel, and the reel is slide one. And then I have the carousel to support what they're talking about in the reel. Then I create a call to action slide that's just standard across all idea pins. And I have a little mention sticker, which you can find on the mobile idea pins builder. And it goes to my profile. So there's a little arrow pointing to my profile. And if they click that, then they can go straight to my profile. So that's one little hack.
Mm-hmm.
You can also create idea pins out of your reels. It's like one pagers, as long as it's like 60 seconds. Super valuable. The only thing I will mention, like tactical wise, is the reason people use Pinterest and the reason they use Instagram or TikTok are totally different, right? So while the cute dancing reels you're making your smoothie are cute and fun, that might fit Instagram, but that won't fit Pinterest. So Pinterest users want to know the recipe to the smoothie. So if you have that and you want to use that video, then I would suggest adding a couple of extra slides of like how to make the smoothie and the ingredients included. And don't skimp out on the steps. The idea pins really are meant to be the full idea and not just to grab their attention. Because like me, the whole reason I started using Pinterest is for food, because I love to cook and I love to eat. If you don't include the full recipe in the idea and how to cook it, people aren't going to go and find it. They're just not going to go to your website and try to find the search bar to find that recipe. They're just not going to do it.
They're just going to keep searching for someone else who has the full thing.
Yes. So a couple tactical tips for listeners on idea pins, but you can definitely create them just in Canva as well. In fact, I will oftentimes take the reel, download it, and stick it in a Canva template, and then have text overlay on top of it. Now, I like to create the text on slide 1 for idea pins in the Pinterest builder, but I will create the text on the Canva slides for all the other ones. I just like the Pinterest text looks native, and Pinterest has said, like, we prefer slide 1 to have our text on it. I think there's something with the algorithm that they pick up on that, and it helps with deliverability.
That's a great tip, actually. Oh, I love all this so much. It makes it just feels a lot more doable. And I think, again, if we can just sit down, the hardest part is figuring out what content it is that we want to share. Because like you said, like you want quality content. You don't want to be just like putting something up there that's not great quality. But it's like, if we can just take a month to like figure out what that is and then just like create this schedule for ourselves, like it's so doable and it's so easy. We don't have to overcomplicate it.
Absolutely. So in that Pinterest system I was telling you about earlier, I have this whole marketing system sheet. It's a marketing plan. It's a 1-page marketing plan. And at the top, you guys can recreate this for yourselves. So the very top row are whatever campaigns you have going on for the year. So this doesn't have to be anything fancy, but if you're launching anything or if you have specials that you're going to run for the year, Black Friday, any holidays, that would be in your campaign. So those like high level promotions. And then the next set of columns down are all the major holidays for the year that are happening, plus any sales or anything that you have in your own marketing calendar that you're going to plug in. So, fall photo shoots, back to school sales, anything like that. Christmas, maybe you have mini sessions for Christmas. That would be in that holiday, like the calendar of what's happening for the year. And you can find most of the major holidays just on Google. And I think timeanddate.com has them all. And then the next section down is content themes you already have. And then there's another section down that's content themes I want to promote. So it's kind of like at a glance, I have this family session for fall. I have these 6 family sessions, or I have this set of productivity tips that go viral every year in August. Like we have that already in there, and then you can see kind of at a glance the whole year.
I think honestly, these simple systems make a really big difference because for me, it's like I've created so many random pieces of content that I either forget that they're there, like, they're like random things on my website, even content I've created for my website. It's like I don't really have that in an easy, accessible place. So a lot of the times I'll even forget the things that I've written. And it's like, I think it's like what you said, like creating creating a place where you can go and just have all of your stuff in one spot. Cause I even think that can help spark ideas, like for creativity when you're feeling kind of stuck and you look and you're like, what do I already have? Like, what is it that I could maybe like just like retweak and share? Because I found for me, I have never been good at repurposing, and I'm finally to the point like now that I'm trying to create an actual like circle system of things, of like podcasts to blog posts to social media to Pinterest pins, like an entire realm of things. I'm like, okay, repurposing makes so much sense because you can really take that one piece of content and just tweak it for like the other platforms. But I also love what you shared about it's really easy to create for Instagram Reels, for example, but like your call to action, because you can't have clickable call to action. It's not like they can click on it anyway. So why not
Yeah.
make it like the language that's kind of friendly for multiple platforms and then being able to reuse that? I think that's such a great tip.
Yes. So we started doing that with our TikTok clients. I don't have TikTok clients. I mean, our clients that have TikTok.
Hmm.
And then Reels became a thing, and it just made sense of like, so those calls to action again are go to visit the link in my profile. It's a very friendly way to say link in bio. Visit the
Hmm.
link in my profile, comment down below, like this for more, or follow us here.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that so much. Oh, I feel like this was filled with so many great tips of like really being able to make it like practical and easy to start. I always love to ask my guests. So, what few things do you feel like? So, obviously, outside of Pinterest and the things you talked about today, like what few things in your business do you feel like have been really the most transformational for you? Whether they're like other systems that you've put into place or like other non tangible things.
So, number one is what we've talked about throughout this entire call, and that's what eventually morphed into being a Pinterest system that I sell. But having literally like what I call like content hub or Pinterest system where I store everything. So, everything from all of my funnel documentation and every link in the funnel and how they work with each other down to just my blog post. So, as soon as a video is published on YouTube, and then we publish a blog post, I put both of those links in the title of that post in that same spreadsheet. So I have one spreadsheet that is literally anyone, if I ever hire them, could step into and know what's going on. So that's tip number one. I have another one that's kind of, it'd be hard for people 1 to 2 years in business, but doable depending on where you're at income wise. And that is just getting a little bit of help. One of the things that I noticed that really propelled my business around year 3 was deciding I didn't want to invest in courses to do it myself anymore, but instead invest in people who already know the material and can do it faster. Then I
Hmm.
don't even like, even if I don't need them forever, they create it for me once, and I can either hire them again to update it later, or keep it updated along the way on my own. So investing in people over courses, especially
Yeah.
after year 2, I think became vital for me to
Yeah.
continue, because you're always wanting to learn, but then you get stuck in this weird mindset of, oh, well, I need to know more before I can do this. When
Hmm.
in reality, you don't.
Well, and I found myself because I have like I always talk about this. I have like an entire graveyard of courses that I purchased that who knows if I'll ever revisit them again. But the other thing that I found myself getting into was that even if it's cheaper to buy the course, you don't have the direction necessarily or the like real assistance to actually implement the things. Which at the end of the day, like that's kind of what the whole purpose is to actually implement it. But even aside from that, I found myself getting into a habit of just buying things. Like I
Mhm.
got so sucked into everything then. It was like, oh, here's this. And I'm like, oh, that would be so great to implement. And now all of a sudden I have all of these things that I'm trying to learn, implement, like put out into the world on my own that then I get so overwhelmed that like nothing goes out. And so it's like getting really clear on, okay, what is the one or two things that I really want to go all in on this year? And again, like just even investing in someone to help get me started with it. And then maybe I can learn a little bit around how they did it and then just like implement it myself or rehire them. But it, it, also for me made a very big difference when I kind of switched that mindset. And I think it does a lot for your confidence when you trust that, okay, I'm going to have someone help me with this, even if I can only afford it for like a month or two to just help it get started. It does a lot, I think, for your business confidence and your mindset and yourself of like, oh, I'm like, this is like legit. Like
I'm going
I
to
have
do
someone
it.
helping me with this. Yeah.
That's actually selfishly why I created my membership and I retired the one-off course purchase. So I used to sell just a Pinterest course, and you could buy it for like $200, your standard course purchase. I reduced the price on that to $37 a month, and I let people come and go, but then they get me every single week on a live Q&A call, and I keep the course updated consistently. So then the information is never out of date, and they have help, because that was
Hmm.
something I caught myself getting stuck in when I was buying courses too, is the information would be great, but then I don't have support to actually implement it, or if it doesn't work, well, how do I change it or tweak it? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of refund policies on courses say like you have to show that you tried to do the
You
work
did
or you can't
everything.
get a
Yeah.
refund. I'm like not all about that life. So that's why I created my membership the way I did. And I just like keep it updated, and then people can get updated information all the time and get help inside.
Yeah.
So if you are thinking about investing in some sort of course where you are going to DIY it, I would definitely look for something like that where you can get
Mm-hmm.
a membership
More
for a lower
hands-on.
cost and get hands
Yeah,
on in a community.
definitely. I second that very much. Well, is there any, last couple questions, is there anything that you wish maybe when you were first starting off in your 1 to 2 years of business that you wish someone would have told you? Or is there something that you've learned recently that you feel really compelled, like for someone who's just starting out, just like any sort of words of advice?
Yes, I wish. So I started off as a blogger, and I really wish when I started blogging for my mom blog and then my travel blog and now my heatherfarris.com account or blog that I would have invested in SEO sooner. And I don't mean like hiring someone to do SEO, but finding a really solid SEO course to take
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to do that from the start. And also right along with that of like how to create content people actually want to consume and learning how to write for your audience. So basically like how to write better and get found on Google. Because when I
Mm-hmm.
invested in an SEO course 2 years ago, it was January 2 years ago. So it's been almost 2.5 years. In that 2.5 years, I rank on page one for so many of my keywords now. Um, Google is my number one traffic source.
Yeah, it's such a game changer. I like also, it's one of those things where you kick yourself for waiting so long to do it. And even looking back, I'm not even sure why. I think because SEO always felt so daunting for me and I assumed I would have to hire somebody. So I always put it off. But I don't know if it's just recently, like maybe there are just more people that are offering these like really good step by step, like helping you figure out how to do it. But yeah, similar thing where I'm like, why did I wait so long to do this? Because at the end of the day, it's like this is going to be the thing that really helps your business like take off. And yet it was the thing that I like waited to do. I
Yep.
tried to do everything else before doing that.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, last question is there any sort of like book or resource or anything that you've read or heard or anything that you feel like has just been really inspirational or just like helped kind of get you to where you are today?
Probably not. It wasn't too long ago. It might have been in 2021 that I saw this video, but there's this YouTuber, and her name is Harris, and people listening to this podcast probably know of Johnny. He's got like 2 million YouTube subscribers. It's his wife.
Hmm.
I just randomly saw this video on YouTube last year, and it was titled "I Quit," and I never knew this chick from anywhere, but in the episode, she talked about all the different reasons or things that she was going to quit doing. And like some of the reasons were like, I'm going to quit people pleasing. I'm going to I'm going to quit putting off going to therapy. Like that particular video from Is Harris really changed my mindset about halfway through last year. In fact, I actually published my own I'm quitting video. And it's still one of my most popular non-Pinterest videos on my channel. So if
That's
anyone is
awesome.
interested in that, her name is Iz Harris, and you can find it on her channel.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll definitely check that out. Awesome. Well, Heather, thank you. This was such a good conversation. I feel like I love that we were able to kind of like real talk of like what does it actually take to get started on this? And it's actually a lot easier than we sometimes think it is. So thank you for
Absolutely.
being so open to sharing that.
I would love
Well, let
to.
us know, how can we connect with you? Where can we find you? And I think you have like a guide that you can share with
Yeah.
listeners. So tell us all that.
Yeah. So everything for me lives on heatherfarris.com. That's my website. It's Farris, not like Ferris Bueller. Um, and from there, you can find my Pinterest strategy guide, which is the freebie I was telling Krista about before the interview started. And it's very detailed in getting started with your Pinterest strategy. And like steps and workflows are included in that. So you can go check that out. I even have like a list of the best YouTube videos that I've created that go right along with each step. So it's very detailed, but you can find that just right on the website on the very first page.
Perfect. And I'll also link to that in the show notes so it's easy for you to find as well.
Of course.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much. It was so great to have you on today.
Thanks, Krista, so much for having me. I appreciate it.
One last thing before you go. I'd absolutely love it if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. Or if you've already left a review, I'd love for you to share this episode with your business bestie. I love getting to shout out my listeners on the show, and the more listeners that we have, the more that I can help others create a thriving and sustainable business too. Thank you so much again for being a part of this community, and I can't wait to hear your takeaways from today's episode.